I want to welcome everybody. My name is Eric Parker. I'm a member of the board of directors here at Homes for the Brave. We wanted to just spend a few minutes today giving everybody an update on where things stand with the organization. As we've been getting things going, starting really at the first of the year here in 2021, one of the things we realized is after a full year of dealing with this pandemic, one of the things we miss the most is having our supporters come into the house and come into the facilities and talk to us and get the updates, because we just haven't been able to do that. So we decided to do these virtual coffee meetings so that we could have a chance to update everybody on where things stand and how their organization's doing. And so I'm going to turn things over to Vince Santilli, the CEO of Homes for the Brave. Also here this morning is Dr. Stephanie Lynham, our Chief Clinical Officer, Maria Satterwhite-Purpura, Chief Operating Officer. And there's a lot of things that we can talk to you about what's going on at the organization. But let's begin with Vince. And Vince, I'll just kind of toss you this to begin. How are things going at Homes for the Brave in spite of all the craziness?
Well, Eric, all things considered, I think we've been extremely fortunate. Our supporters have certainly stuck with us and stuck by us. We've been challenged by the pandemic. And, when you look at everything we do, I think has required adjustments. And yet at the same time, I think we've had some remarkable successes, which we'll be able to share this morning. On a financial level, we want to thank our supporters. When you think about it, in the past 13 months, our expenses for food, for cleaning supplies, for PPE have just, skyrocketed. And I think what we've done is worked extremely hard and focused significantly on keeping our residents and of course our staff members as well safe and healthy. And I think, and as I knock on wood as I say this, I think, it's been, we've been really, really fortunate. When you look at how have we adjusted, well, we haven't had, as you mentioned, Eric, external guests coming into the facility. We hope we're close to where that's going to change and we can flip the switch on that. So therefore, meals and workshops that many groups and organizations and families have offered here have not been able to take place. They've been able to sometimes drop food off, and we've had to engage our caterer 7 days a week. Our house, every day dinner was served here at the men's house and at the female houses. And, when you look at it, we had to do that instead of everybody eating at the same time in the same place. We've had to serve our meals in shifts. Our weekly house meeting, which was always a staple of what we do and a major way for us to communicate, we've had to have in shifts in order to avoid having a large group of individuals sitting close to one another and so forth. Things that 13 and a half months ago, I'll say, was basically the last thing on our minds. Our events, we survive by certainly generating revenues from fundraising events, and we've had to just, major adjustments there. Last November was historically our mini golf, and we couldn't have that, and so instead we substituted a karate kickathon right here in the parking lot outside, which was a wonderful success and just a way to, I think, another way to adjust. Our step up, which 5 years in a row was remarkably successful, had to become the step out and take place virtually. And so, when you look at that, those are things we had to adjust. We had to adjust our golf classic to timing and delay it for several months. We had to do the same thing with our comedy night, which was going to be last month and instead will be on June 4th. So, when you look at that, you have to be really flexible. And I think we've been able to do that successfully. We added some virtual events. We had a couple virtual bingos. And, we've had people all over the country. We've had people playing bingo to support Homes for the Brave in Colorado, in Iowa, in Chicago. And, we're so grateful for that. And these are things we wouldn't have even thought of doing a year and a half ago now. And this is now the norm. Yet at the same point, we've enjoyed some wonderful successes. Our vocational program in 2020, our vocational placement rate for our veterans was 86%, which we know was very close to the top, and we believe it led the entire country in programs that work with the VA that serve veterans. And you know what? So far in 2021, we're rolling at about the same pace. We're in the 70s now, and we have till June 30th to, and not knowing even, we're going to have, some additional residents coming that we don't know who they are yet. And, but at the same point in time, we're going to work vigorously in supporting them. And what we're finding is that somebody who really, really wants to work, there are opportunities even in a pandemic for them. It may not be the career path that, that they had aspired to in the future, but it's something to get them back on their feet. And so that's what we've been doing. As we look to the future, certainly in the very near future, hopefully in the next few weeks, we're hoping to reopen the building to, to external visitors, get our Veteran Service Center rolling again. When things had to be put on hold in last March, I mean, we were going great guns, okay? Computer classes, job prep workshops, 2 different therapy dogs were visiting us each month. We had a weekly AA meeting. We had life skills seminars. We had movie showings. And so these are things that we are just chomping at the bit to get rolling again. And then as we look a little further, we're looking to put an elevator in this building. And I think when you look at the demographics of the veterans population, is something that's going to be a key element for us. And then as we look further ahead, just something that's always been, I think, an obstacle for our male and female veterans is finding permanent and affordable housing in every part of Connecticut and every part of the country, really, including this very neighborhood where we operate. And so we're endeavoring to put together a tiny homes village to really enable our veterans to have a sense of community and thrive, and to run our service center out of there. So that's kind of aspirational, and that's a little bit, that's not something we're going to snap our fingers and it's going to happen. But those are things that I just wanted to kind of put on the table and, let you know that these are the things we're thinking about, and these are the things that we are aspiring to make happen.
All great stuff, Vince. And of course, we're recording this, so for people who couldn't join us live, we'll get to look at it later. Let me ask you a couple of questions, and I'll have some for you, Stephanie and Marie, as well. But Vince, let me start with this. You mentioned, the importance of fundraising. Talk a little bit about the flip that we've seen over the last few years and our source of where our revenue comes from, because that's been a big change and something that, even in a pandemic, the organization's handled well.
Thank you, Eric. And you know what? This coming Sunday, I'll be here 5 years. And, 5 years ago when I arrived, when we looked at the proportion of our revenues that were being generated out of Washington, D.C. or Hartford, were 74% of our budget. The proportion at that point in time that we were generating via our fundraising, our generation of grants, our generation of fees was 20%. As we look at 2020, the year that just ended, okay, the proportion of those revenues that we're generating on our own are 53%. And the proportion that came from Washington, D.C. and Hartford was 44%. So when you look at how that's just staggering, in my opinion. And certainly we knew there was going to be a tweak. And when I arrived here, I knew that was going to be the case. But to think it was going to occur that significantly in that short a time frame, I don't think anybody could have predicted.
Stephanie, I want to ask you a question. One of the things Vince talked about was the desire to create individual spaces for the residents. Mm-hmm. From a clinical perspective, how important is that, and why is it something that the organization is thinking about?
Yeah, so Vince mentioned, thanks, Eric. Vince mentioned that for permanent housing, we're trying to create a tiny home village, and we're also pursuing the opportunity to create some individualized rooms here at our transitional house at the men's house. Right now, the men share cubicle style bedrooms that are like 3/4 length walls. And so considering everything we've gone through with the pandemic, we're trying to increase safety and see if we can create individualized rooms with individualized bathrooms, and adapting our building. From a clinical standpoint, that would really help because so many of our services have shifted from in-person services where all of our veterans are going to the VA or their community service providers to get their individualized therapy, to meet with their psychiatrists about their medications, whereas that's no longer the case. Over the past year, so much of those meetings have happened virtually, either over the phone or through computers. And because we don't have a lot of private spaces in our building right now, we've had to be creative to support our residents so they can have that support that they need, and also the privacy. So the addition of individualized rooms will allow them to have those meetings in their own bedroom and not have to worry about coordinating with staff to use staff offices, or we've used the laundry room when we've needed to. We've used whatever space possible. It will also give them the opportunity to utilize their coping skills. So when they're, having a bad day, or, things have happened in their life and they need to implement those skills that they're learning in the groups and the individual therapy, they now have a place to go do that without other people watching them maybe, and the privacy to do their journaling or meditation. Which will really increase probably them using their coping skills, which is kind of a barrier with the amount of public space we have right now.
All right, can you hear me now? I had a little computer technology issue. You rolled with it well, Stephanie. I apologize. I want to ask you a question, Maria. Obviously, everybody who's got anything to do with the organization is so proud of everything that the staff and the leadership has done during this unprecedented time for all of us. Can you tell us a little bit about just how it's going day to day?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, Vince talked a lot about this, but I think, the kind of stuff that we're doing on a daily basis is we're doing temperature checks for all the residents and for the staff. Everyone's required to wear a mask. I mean, this is stuff that you see, honestly, everywhere you go. But, we're also doing thorough cleanings 3 times a day. We're having sanitation company come in once a month and kind of deep clean everything. We have air filtration that we've put in at our house and at the men's house and the women's house. We've been doing regular testing. And, a lot of this, we adapt. Leadership meets every week and we talk about kind of where we are and where Connecticut is and Fairfield County is with COVID, and we adjust as we have to. I have to say, we've been really successful at handling like COVID. We've had a few positive cases in clients and in staff, but no one's been hospitalized. We've successfully quarantined and isolated everybody that needed to be quarantined and isolated. We haven't had any outbreaks. And, that honestly is due to the staff working really hard. Our frontline staff, our house monitors, are working harder than anyone to make sure that this happens well. And, we're really appreciative of them. We also, we're working to get everyone vaccinated. We've been really fortunate to work with the Bridgeport Health Department. They've been wonderful. And at this point, all of our staff and residents, veterans and non-veterans, have been offered vaccines. Almost everyone has received 2 doses of the vaccine as of last week. So that's actually really helpful, and it's kind of, helping us take a little bit of a breath and step back. But we're also seeing, in the state, coronavirus activity increasing. So, we need to be careful, and we need to continue to be careful. People are really tired at this point. And, I know everybody's sick of going to the grocery store and wearing a mask and walking one way down the aisles, but, it's the same here. People are tired of kind of feeling like life is not back to normal, but, we want to be really careful and make sure that we don't move too fast, which is why we're looking at the situation on a kind of a weekly basis. So
let me ask you one question. Vince mentioned the elevator, which would be a big expense if we pursue it. Just for people maybe who are watching this video or joining us live who don't know a lot about the house and our population, why is that such an important idea?
Well, we have currently our building is, we have a basement that has some offices in it. Our first floor has offices and common rooms. The basement has the computer lab and the laundry too. And then we have 2 floors of resident rooms that are second and third floor. Right now, everything is walk-up. We have 2 handicap accessible rooms on the first floor that have their own laundry facilities and their own bathroom. So right now we can accommodate 2 veterans who have limited mobility. Unfortunately, we routinely get referrals from veterans who have limited mobility, and we have conversations with them and we say, do you think you can handle the second floor? Do you think you can handle the stairs? And we work with them the best we can, but we're seeing an increased need for handicap accessible spaces for these folks, in addition to the clinical stuff that Stephanie's talking about. So we would like to take our 120-year-old building and make it more accessible for them. In addition to the changes that Stephanie's talking about with making our spaces a little bit more private. Everybody does have a private space. It's just not as private as we would like it to be. So like right now, everyone has a cubicle, but the walls, they go up 6 feet. You guys have all been in cubicles or seen them. So they do have some privacy, but they can also hear their neighbor snoring, and they can argue about whether it's too hot or too cold in the room, all kinds of stuff that we've all lived with other people, and that's just what happens. So, yeah.
Stephanie, how about sorry, I didn't interrupt you, Maria. I was just going to ask Stephanie, the pandemic has created so many things. How about the clinical process? Has it changed for you, how you deal with the residents?
To a certain extent, we made a choice pretty early on to continue to do face-to-face individual therapy. Because we were coming into the office and so many services, the VA and community service providers were not doing face-to-face therapy. And we saw that that was really difficult for the veteran population. So depending on the challenges that they have, some were very suspicious around technology and privacy issues, where other people that not seen on video hearing the things that they were talking about. Also some of the privacy issues that we talked about earlier, that they didn't have the space then to talk freely about what they felt they needed to. So we continued to offer individual therapy. I wore a mask the entire time, encouraged veterans to wear a mask, and eventually we made that a mandate in our offices. And we stayed as distant as possible in the office. And really, we did fairly well with that. We come to find out there was at least one veteran that I was seeing that ended up being positive that I had seen for therapy right before we found out, and that did not spread to me, which is fantastic. And so I think there's a way to do this. And it encouraged a lot more of the veterans to come in for therapy, because I provided a lot more support during the pandemic than prior. To help supplement the lack of services that they were receiving elsewhere. And then for veterans that were not comfortable with it and alumni that moved out of our house, I also did offer telehealth visits, which was new. We were not doing that prior to the pandemic. So we did adjust a little bit for anybody that didn't feel comfortable, and to expand our reach to our alumni that had left the program, because then they could continue to see me rather than having to switch providers when they left.
All great stuff. So many good success stories. Vince, what do you need from people? How can they help? What do you hope if somebody sees this video today or is joining us live? What do you need people to do?
Well, we want them to stay engaged with us, and we find this as a great opportunity to keep them posted. Okay, these are the things that are happening, because it's so easy in so many respects to kind of lose track of things. So we thought, okay, let's at least offer a way to give a quick update. Certainly continue to think of us. We can't wait to get that Veteran Service Center reopened, and those who have skills that are local that can come in here and do workshops on nutrition, wellness, financial literacy, etc. Those are all things that can come in and help us run our job prep workshops and help our veterans maybe review a resume or prepare them for an interview, or help work and network with those they know in the area to help us find employment opportunities for our male and female veterans. Those are all things I think that are just critically important, that enable us to keep the wheels turning here.
And of course, there's, different financial needs now. You mentioned having to have the caterer prepare every meal, things like that. So obviously, there's so many different things that the organization could use, but always financial is one of them.
Yeah, that certainly, and Maria mentioned we're having all 3 of our facilities sanitized each month. And, it's not done for free. So not that I keep good track, but $3,595 is what that monthly bill is there. And, so when you think of that, that's like, holy smokes. But we feel that that's an appropriate investment to make to keep our male and female veterans safe, keep them healthy, and, and our staff and so forth. And so it's really, really important.
And to hear that, there hasn't been any outbreaks, or, there's been individual cases, but it hasn't, spread through a house, and with communal living, that certainly is a concern. So obviously, I think you got to say at the end of a year plus of doing this, a big success.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Anything else? We're just about out of time, Vince. Anything else you want to leave people with?
We just want to thank you, Eric. And I want to urge our listeners and to the best show on today is on Sunday mornings at 8:30 on WFSB Channel 3. It's called CT21, and you're looking at the host right there. So Eric, thank you so much for everything you do for Homes for the Brave.
Well, I think the people at Channel 3 must be paying you to advertise, because you keep telling everybody. But no, I appreciate that. Jill is asking about, if we can send some talking points out. We definitely can do that, Jill. That's something that we can follow up with. And, we want everyone to help spread the word. So do you guys have any questions? I don't mean to cut you off, those who are here joining us.
Well, I have a suggestion maybe. Jill, you asked for some success stories. I know that we have a couple success stories that we'd love to share. And I think Stephanie had one we were talking earlier about, maybe that she could share a little bit about. It's not COVID related, but it's great.
Yeah, well, he did leave during COVID. So we did have a young veteran who came to us very shortly after he was discharged from the military. He was married. There was not a long history of mental health or substance abuse. I think a lot of people assume that with the homeless population. In this case was a little bit different. He went right from high school into the military, and then just didn't have a place to go when he was discharged. And his in-laws would only take in his wife, but not him. And so then he was referred to Homes for the Brave. And while he was here, he made use of just about every program. I saw him for individual therapy, which really helped him to improve his relationship with his wife and his in-laws, helped him to start making more informed decisions around things rather than kind of that younger impulsive decision making that he had. And he utilized our vocational program where he got his security guard card, and then we also helped him get his pistol permit, so he was able to go from an unarmed security guard to an armed security guard, which that transition allowed him to get a better paying job so that he could actually afford the housing for his wife, who was also pregnant, and they now are doing really well. He's maintained his security job at a local hospital. He's supporting them, and they have 2 kids now. And he's been out of here for just over a year, and he moved out during COVID and was working at the hospital during COVID. So.
And that's, you hear those stories and that there's, like you said, a family behind that. And there's, somebody who came in needing help and is now doing great. And, there's so many of those stories. Vince, do you want to just tick off some of the great stats that you can tell us, how many people are in the house and some of the success story stats?
Well, I mentioned, our vocational placement rate was 86% last year. We're running in the 70s right now. So we're pretty confident we're going to be in that same area when the year ends. Our occupancy is on the low side because we have to keep rooms in both of our male and female transitional houses, held aside for isolation and quarantine and so forth. So we're running at, probably significantly lower than where we were 13 months ago, where we were only here in the men's transitional house. We're in the low to mid 20s right now. And at that time, when the pandemic struck, we were at 38, 39 with the capacity being 42. So it's been quite something. But what we know is going to happen when the eviction moratorium expires, all of a sudden the places, our houses are going to dramatically fill up. And so, so we're just kind of in a sense bracing for that.
All right. Well, I appreciate you, Vince, and Stephanie and Maria for joining us, and for everybody else who tuned in and is watching or watching the recording. Thank you. I know on behalf of the board of directors, we're just so proud of the work that the leadership and the staff and everybody at the program have done. And anybody who sees this video, we just encourage you to help out as best you can, and to keep Homes for the Brave top of mind, because certainly it's an organization that does so much good work, like Stephanie was talking about. That's just one success story, and there's so many more. So thank you for being with us, and thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, you can, I think Vince is available 24/7, 365. He might even be more hours than that somehow. So thank you all for being with us today, and we appreciate it.